As we started to get reports about people being rescued from roofs and rivers breaking, that we knew we were dealing with something unprecedented. It was basically a 1 in 1,000 year event playing out across our communities with no telecommunications, no power, and every physical connection between Napier and Hastings and Whitehall having been severed.
How was the port? What sort of state is the actual physical port in? Where were our people? How safe were they? People were cut off, absolutely cut off.
If I think about the first couple of weeks, it was about being vulnerable. I know I talked publicly and with my staff around was being overwhelmed in the second week post the event when I drove down Pucklefy Road, one of my favourite places in Hastings, seeing the devastation and just cried like a baby and saying, you know, actually you're going to deal with a range of emotions.
We needed to, allow our team to do what they needed to do, first and foremost for themselves, their families, their community, and understand that, but then coming back to the port, allow them to put in place what they needed to put in place to get the port up and running, because again, we were a lifeline asset, we have to be running, and in fact, post-cyclone, the port was one of the only access ways in and out of the region. It was only by sea. Roads and rail and all those sorts of things cut off. Airport couldn't operate, didn't have power. So we were really the only way to get stuff supplied in and out of the region at the time. First few days, you're making decisions about the here and now. Once you've established, is everybody safe? Is the operation safe to have people in? Then you're starting to think about, okay, how do you get the thing up and running? What do we need to do today or in the next hour or two? What do we have to do by the end of the day? What are we doing by the end of tomorrow? And then as a leader, then you're starting to think a little bit further afield. What does this mean in a week's time? What does it mean in 2 weeks or a month's time? Where do we need to be? And what am I communicating to the team about what they should expect and what we need to do? One
of the things that I am most thankful for doing early was reaching out and getting support from leaders who had been through this. So bringing in leaders, talking to leaders that led their community in the decade post the Christchurch earthquake. Some of the best things we did in terms of things put in place in the community and in the organisation weren't things that we came up with, but was advice we'd had from leaders that had all the scar tissue from what we're still going through.
One of the big lessons we took out of COVID was actually, as a leader, you need to let your people do what they know they need to do and just give them the autonomy to do that. You can have all the business continuity plans in the world, and that's great, and you should do those things and prepare for them and practice for these sorts of events, but whatever you practice for is not generally going to be what plays out in real life. And that's where you've got to rely on the team and the people to do what they think needs to be done and give them the autonomy to act and do that.
Your greatest asset is people, and people having empathy and placing community at the centre of how they think and behave and act. But the importance of, from a leadership perspective, of being really deliberate about looking after your people, being really honest about who are the most critical people that you're going to have over a long period of time to support your community to recover, being really deliberate about things like organisational resilience, well-being, what are the things that you're putting in place around your critical people, are all things that have been things that myself and my leadership team have been pretty focused on in the 16 months since Cyclone Gabrielle. We saw that leaders and communities step up the very best of how communities look after one another, and our whole focus post-Cyclone Gabrielle has been saying that's the key going forward. A huge investment in building and supporting over 40 communities, establish their own community plans, their own community hubs. I think nearly $4 million that's been invested into them having what they need in terms of a plan and resources, that if this happens again, the strength will come initially from communities being prepared and being able to respond and look after themselves.